Some big updates out of Habs prospects over in Russia as we have a really positive outlook on Bogdan Konjushkov's season. We haven't heard much on him, but you're going to want to tune in for that. Plus another Habs prospect in Russia that has certain Habs fans a little bit concerned with some comparisons with Ivan Demidov's situation. We're going to get into all of that. Plus, Jesse, we got to talk about Raphael Harvey now being sent down to Laval for a conditioning stint and what that means not only for Montreal, but for the Laval Rocket. And finally, some comments from Kris Knoblauchs, the Oilers head coach, after the Habs game that will have us pretty excited. So we'll dive into all that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. And I want to start with Kris Knoblauchs. Now, we're going to play some highlights from last night's game again. And the big thing we saw from last night, Jesse, was Montreal's defense. But not only their defense, their ability to, like Marty said, make Edmonton not gamble, so you don't give Edmonton a chance to capitalize on the gamble, but it's Montreal outworking the other team, making these consistent moves and capping the game off like that. And Kris Knoblauchs had some very interesting comments after the game, their head coach. Here's what he had to say. A lot of credit to them defending, keeping us out to the outside and not getting beat. He went on to say, yeah, they had a lot of speed, not so much difficulty for us defending, but the speed of them checking, not giving us time, space. They were able to skate and close, and a lot of that comes from Marty, as he said, and as the Habs planned to do, just not gambling too much, playing a nice conservative game. They saw that it worked against Edmonton, and Jesse, this defensive system is finally coming to fruition, and even opposing coaches of really good offensive players are taking notice.
Yeah, again, from a coach that almost won it all last year, a very good coach in this league. So this is absolutely big praise. And like when he's saying not getting beat, it means that these Habs players are being aware of where they are positionally on the ice all the time. You saw Suzuki whenever he was on the ice with McDavid, he's doing the shoulder checks. He's checking all the time of really being aware, buying into that system. And by extension, Josh, they're showing respect to Martin St. Louis and the structure that he's looked to set up with this team, again, by kind of limiting those really high danger chances as much as possible. And while the Montreal Canadiens did have the advantage in Corsi puck possession and having 54% of the shot attempts, the opportunities that Edmonton did get, especially when it came on the power play, we did take maybe a couple one too many last night, is that we were looking to limit those opportunities as best as possible. So that's really the big thing where we can see just noticeably playing a good game, not making those drastic mistakes, kind of playing as a unit throughout the ice, I think has been the key to success because we know Montreal, it's not just about that one guy. For right now, until we get those two superstars, it's all about that five-man unit.
And you know what? I saw a stat. Now, I hope I'm not misquoting, but I believe I'm on point here. Montreal was second over their past 5 games. They're second in the NHL in expected goals for per 60 and second best in expected goals against per 60. Maybe it's top 5, maybe it's not actually second, but regardless, Montreal has been near the top of the league in both of those stats, while through their first 14 games, they were one of the worst teams in the bottom 5 in both those stats. So Montreal has really turned things around, Jesse, and as you mentioned, the biggest thing for me is just watching, no gambling on defense was one thing. I think they've been improving on that, but no big mistakes. Like you said, there were no massive turnovers. It was just like a simple game that worked. And so now we've been, hyping up a simple game for Montreal, but we're starting to see it come across where the simple game is working, but the guys are now also starting to integrate their own game back into it. We're seeing Lane Hutson. He kind of stopped the flashiness, went to the simple game, and now we're starting to see the flashiness come back with him making fewer mistakes, him hounding Draisaitl. There's a lot of great things, but I'm going to hear your guys' thoughts down below. I know we talked about this yesterday, talked about it today, but this is just a really, really fun thing. But Jesse, we got to move on because another fun thing, and could be a problem for the Habs roster moving forward because we got to make some decisions, but it's Raphael Harvey-Pinard, and we got an update from the Habs today that they have assigned Raphael Harvey-Pinard to the Laval Rocket on a long-term injury conditioning loan. So he can be down there for a handful of games, and they have, I believe, 3 games coming up this week, Jesse, but this roster is absolutely stacked. So for me, my main opinion of this is, first of all, awesome to see him almost back on the team. We'll have to see how they make room for him on the Habs roster because, he does have to come back up at some point. You can't just stick him down in Laval and leave him there without any cap consequences. But this team right now is stacked with talent. You got Barré Guhle. You got guys like Beck and Davidson who are showing up. Even Laurent Dauphin, who I forgot was back with Laval this year. Inserting RHP into this team, Jesse, not only will give them a boost, but I think it's the perfect situation with a team that's rolling, one of the best in the AHL, with a bunch of guys rolling offensively. This is the perfect way to bring RHP right back up to speed.
And at 25 years old, you got to feel like RHP is going to be motivated. He knows that it's kind of his time now to prove if he belongs in the NHL or not. And if there's one thing that RHP can do, it's bring that hustle at that right time, play that solid 200-foot game. And it looks, Josh, like he might be put in a position to succeed right away with Laval. It turns out like if ABB is still injured going into their next game, it's looking like RHP is going to be on that top line with Xhekaj, with Joshua Waugh there. So again, a really big opportunity for him. You know, he's going to want his time in Montreal, and it's going to come. And I'm going to be curious to see how he really makes of that situation there, because, you know, guys like Gallagher, Lavaliger in this case here, it's like those are always the ones, like, especially that I want to see succeed, is those type of guys. So we know that he's on the outside kind of looking right now, but you know he's going to get a shot. We're just going to see. It's going to be very important to look like, what is he really going to do with it?
Yeah, I'm curious what they do with the roster, because I think there might be room for him right now, unless I'm mistaken. I'm not totally sure after Oliver Kapanen was sent back. No, because Condada's on the team. So you may have to send Condada down to bring RHP back. That's kind of what we figured was going to happen. But to be fair, I also figured Michael Pezzetta would get some games while Condada's up here. So the plans have kind of gone out the window. I'm not sure what the plan is with Pezzetta now either, but we're going to have to wait and see. But you're absolutely right, Jesse. It would be amazing to see RHP come back and succeed, because that first call-up just a couple seasons ago was so magical. That stretch of like 15, 20, 25 games where he put up like 14 goals. It was one of the best things I've seen over the past couple of years. So really hope he comes back firing, because we know this guy can put up numbers in Laval, and to get him right back up to speed, play with some very talented young players, I think it's going to be really exciting. But speaking of talented young players, we haven't done a Russia update in a while, and well, it's time to do it. And, you know, this isn't just from us here. Full credit goes to Patrick Bexell as well, who wrote this article, posted it yesterday. And we like to dive into the Russian prospects every now and then, but this just supported it. I will link this down below. There's more than just these guys, and I really suggest you go give Patrick the love he deserves. Of course, follow him on Twitter as well, because there's lots of great stuff over there. But I want to break down a couple of our Russian boys, Jesse, and I want to start with Bogdan, because Bogdan is a guy that we have not covered too much this year. Last year, he was really, really good. Haven't heard as much from him this year. Well, he lost the C, of course, with Slava Voinov. Anyway, you know, there's certain issues with him, but Bogdan lost the C, is what it is. But Torpedo 6 in the standings. They're 4 points behind Demidov's SKA. Konyushkov plays about 22 minutes a night. He gets power play time. He's used when his team has pulled the goalie. He's the extra attacker. You know, he said, I don't think Konyushkov's the player you write about in regards to points. Haven't watched enough of them, but the times I've watched, he's gotten better in the D zone. Can't say if that's because of a better system or if he's taken the step further in development or both. I would tend to say, like, you know, as you're getting older, as you get that kind of responsibility, you start to develop those habits. And we know the defensive end was the biggest thing for him when we've been watching him. His ability to close gaps, his decision making on when to go after the puck, when not to, was not really there on defense. His skating as well could be used to improve. But to hear that he's still getting incredible ice time, Jesse, is really music to my ears. And they clearly rely on this guy a lot.
And it's a great update for Konyushkov here. Like, if there's one player we don't need to worry about getting ice time, developing, it's Bogdan. He's playing in all types of situations, which is absolutely phenomenal for him. We do see like that his points are kind of going down a little bit. He was averaging about a 0.43. Now he's down to 0.28, you know, points ratio. But we know he's more of a defensive guy. He was a guy that always could get those points, but he's focusing more on that defensive game. That's kind of part of the overall vision with the coaching right now, with Torpedo as well. But you have to feel like with him, it's like if he's coming to Montreal, he's playing more of a defensive game anyway. And we know that he wants to get over here too. You know, he can play on that right side as well, which we know is still having more of a defensive guy. You know, I think could be a nice niche for him kind of going forward. Still not set in stone that he makes, you know, the big club, but we've known for a long time that there's a lot of things to like about his game. He's just kind of concentrating that defensive game, which I think shapes up really well for his potential pro career with the Habs.
Yeah, because like his offensive game is clearly there. Like he can do it. And if he can keep improving that defensive side and again, turn himself into a specialist, like you can develop that kind of strong two-way game. Like, man, I think that would be amazing because he has shown, like you said, lots of great flashes of being solid, at least on the defensive side too. I think he's very versatile. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm excited for this guy. I know, you know, we are the founding members of the Bogdan fan club, as many of you know. So if you are also a member of the Bogdan fan club, I just want you to leave a B in the comment section down below. Just type the letter B and hit send. We'll know that you are an honorary Bogdan fan club member. We've done that before. It's a very good success. But there's one other guy, Jesse, that we have not really spoken about this year, but he was spoken about after the draft. Marty the Point actually has some very interesting comments on him, and that's Makar Hanin. Now, he has spent time in the MHL, the VHL, and the KHL so far this season. He is bouncing around leagues, but he earned his third KHL game after playing 2 games. He only played a minute 20 in that last game, but he did play in the MHL against Spartak's junior team, where he got an assist. over that past week. But going over some tape from last season, Patrick was surprised because we all know Hanin, like the big thing with him is he had some really nice offensive potential. His shot looked, I don't know if I want to say NHL ready, but very, very good. And he says if Montreal Canadiens fans want to talk about usage, it's Hanin's they should talk about, not Demidov's. Very interesting. So let's take a look at his stats. Of course, drafted just this past season in the 7th round. So let's start by saying I personally have basically no expectations for a 7th round pick. That's kind of the thing. You draft him that late. They even said, Marty, the point's like, this is a bit of a flyer. We've been following him all year. This is not a pick out of nowhere. We drafted him for a reason because we think he has that future potential. But in his draft plus one, Jesse, he had 5 points in 5 games in the MHL, already earning himself 3 KHL games. Even if this guy can develop into a guy that a couple years down the road, you even slightly consider bringing over to North America, that's a win to me. And honestly, so far, the fact that he's gotten 3 KHL games, even though there may be some complaints about his ice time, it's kind of impressive.
This is a positive development for him, definitely the fact that, he's showing that offensive potential, those 5 points in the MHL there, this forward here. The big thing with him is definitely like his shot, definitely. But you have to feel like, at 6 foot, kind of 160 for sure, maybe just putting on a little bit of weight there. But just the fact that he's getting his feet wet in the KHL is great. He's producing the MHL, which isn't, completely nothing to take. It's something, the fact that, he's doing it there. So this is exactly the type of guys, though, again, that you want to take in the 7th round where, like, we know that, okay, he's a little bit of a smaller guy at 160 right now, but that potential, that upside is still definitely there. We know that having a great shot is one of the best assets to have that to get you into the NHL. We know it kind of reminds you a little bit of Caufield. I don't know if they're exactly the same player, but two guys that, about the same height and weight, that have awesome shots at the same time. You have to feel like Koivu's a little bit higher up the depth chart at this point to cut in. But again, this was a great selection for the kind of high upside that this type of player can potentially bring. We definitely can't still rule him out.
No, exactly. And here's the thing. Like we said, it's a 7th round pick. I mean, Jake Evans is a huge outlier with the fact that he has 100 points as a 7th round pick. Yeah, there have been lots of successful 7th rounders in NHL history, but the 99%, I would imagine, never make the show or even really come close. And the fact this guy's, point per game in the MHL, it's not nothing. The fact he's earned KHL games is really nice. So we'll have to wait and see on him, but he's just one of those names that, just keep in the back of your mind because you never know what's going to happen in the coming years. But let us know your thoughts on all the stuff we discussed down below today. RHP, Bogdan, Makar Hanin, and any other prospects you want us to talk about. We'd love to hear from you because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're pushing 16K. We're already halfway there from 15, so if you can hit that button, we'd really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.